Hi and welcome to my channel. This is Virginia and today we're going to go over the blood moon total lunar eclipse. This is happening on September 7, 2025 at 2:08 p.m. Eastern Time. What makes this a blood moon is the hue that will take upon the solar light going through the Earth atmosphere, where the blue rays get absorbed and the red rays are projected. To understand what an eclipse is, look at the upper right corner, and in this case, the moon is eclipsed by the Earth. This is a full moon eclipse in Pisces, and full moons are terminations, but eclipses are lunations on steroids, so these are terminations on steroids. And what you're terminating is something that probably started around 6 months ago with the new moon in Pisces, right before eclipse season in March. But the interesting thing is that this moon is conjunct the North Node, which is about beginnings, where the termination is ushering a new beginning in a way that is not just alternates, but it almost overlaps. And this is in the Pisces area of your chart. And Pisces is the mutable water sign, which is adaptable, dynamic, and changing like the tides because it rules fluids, is steamy, is foggy, and is ruled by Neptune, that is the gas planet that looks like water. And that's why it's also the planet of illusion. And where there's illusion, there's disillusion and delusion. And with delusion, deception. So that's the shadow side. Pisces is the sign of visions and dreams, of rest, sleep, that which is unseen, the imagination, inspiration, sensitivity, and part of the shadow side is also confusion and escapism through substances like drugs and alcohol, so be careful. And the archetype is the mystic, and it rules the 12th house of spirituality, mental health, rest, the unconscious, institutions like churches, hospitals, and jails, and it also rules addictions and loss. In the planet, it rules oceans and waters in general, and the collective unconscious and the need to transcend. The modern ruler is Neptune, and the traditional ruler is Jupiter. And this eclipse is on the second decan that is ruled by the moon, which is moody, and the moon rules the body and the emotions. So this is an all-encompassing body, mind, spirit transformation, and eclipses accelerate karma. The symbol of Neptune is that of the crescent moon at the top, representing intuition, over the cross of as above, so below, and spirit over matter. Overall is the house of self-undoing, and because eclipse is such a volatile time, ideally you don't push the envelope because it can end up costing you greatly. In which case, it might push you into a turning point of quitting that would jeopardize your well-being and help you get your act together. So we might see some blessings in disguise. Either way, eclipses are experienced as emergencies. I myself had an emergency in the previous eclipse season at the same time that my boyfriend did, which ended up expediting us getting our affair in orders for mutual protection. So on one hand, we have Neptune, the modern ruler, that is retrograde and in Aries, which is a very uncomfortable energy for Neptune because Neptune is water and Aries is fire. Neptune belongs to the last sign of the zodiac and Aries is the first one. And they're basically in an aversion that is like a blind spot where they have nothing in common, no polarity, no modality, no element. So on top of that is in a conjunction with Saturn, which is also a very opposite energy, as Saturn is very concrete and drying and is all about matter. And Saturn is also retrograde, but Saturn is in Pisces now. And even though it's not conjunct, the eclipse is conjunct the North Node, witnessing the eclipse. And Saturn energy is experienced harshly, but it's also very sobering and grounding and centering because it's an Earth planet. And the core ruler of the eclipse is Jupiter, which is the great benefic and is exalted in Cancer and is in a positive flow with the nodes of fate and both luminaries of the eclipse benefiting the eclipse. And this is in Pisces, where we're talking about surrender, forgiveness of self and others, emotional release, and awakenings. The caution here is escapism with substances or victimhood mentality. And there is a chance that you might feel overwhelmed or disillusioned, or actually both. But there's a finger of God, which is composed by two quincunx from Venus and Mars, the cosmic lovers. And Venus is what we love, and Mars represents our actions. And Venus in Leo belongs to the fifth house of creativity, which is its joy. But Mars is in exile in Libra. Although they're not making an aspects because they're not close enough for a sextile, they are in mutual reception, so they're working together. Because Venus much rather be in Libra, where she rules, and Mars in Leo, a fellow fire sign. So at least they're working together. So Mars in Libra can be hesitant for our actions and is not fully supporting that which we want. But after the eclipse season, Mars will enter Scorpio, that is its own territory, and then there's no stopping us. And Mars is opposed Chiron, so we're coming from a place of a wound where we might fear rejection, and that's why we might be hesitant. But with Saturn at the 29th critical degree, the limitations feel very intense, and we are afraid of disapproval. But because Saturn is so solid and it's about maturity, it helps us build the grit and the structure for what we need. And the lunar eclipse is opposed Mercury, which is conjunct the Sun, and Mercury represents information and the Sun represents light. So I expect some information coming to light. But Mercury is combust, so sometimes there is like too much information. And with Pluto, that is the planet that rules the shadows, in Aquarius, that rules the collective, there is some darkness coming to light that affects the collective. And is very revealing, because that's what eclipses are. They're revelations. And Mercury is strong because it's in Virgo, it's rulership, and it's all about the details and dotting the I's. And because it's in a second square with Chiron in Aries, this is information probably related to healthcare in Virgo. Chiron is the wounded healer, so this is about some wound or some healing, and in Aries is about aggression. And recently we had the Shooter, and he's raising questions about the common denominator. And what they all had in common were SSRIs. And that's why they say that if you take certain antidepressants, you might have paradoxically suicidal thoughts. But as a therapist, I can tell you that someone who has suicidal thoughts can also have homicidal thoughts, because they're not that far apart. And if you don't care for your own life, whose else are you going to care for? Now with Jupiter squaring Mars, there's an added level of intensity to the eclipse. And with Neptune at the apex of the grand sextiles between the outer planets, this energy is going to carry on for a longer time, especially for the collective, as the outer planets affects generations, and now they're all retrograde. So we're going to get a taste of all times. And the other interesting thing with this eclipse is that it's in a T-square with the asteroid Wuhan. And as per Eastern time, the asteroid Wuhan is also opposed our local rising, making this a grand cross, for which I suspect that we're going to get news about the recent past. And we see to the right that the little symbol that looks like a man doing Tai Chi is Wuhan. And Wuhan is the largest city in central China and a focal point of Chinese history, because it's where it started the revolution which overthrew the emperor. And Wu means military and also business, and Han means coal. So this is Cold War or financial warfare. And one of the implications of COVID is that it was a biological weapon. And a possible meaning of the asteroid in this configuration is about something that starts small but soon becomes quite significant on the world stage. And Neptune rules viruses. But if we look to the left, we can see at the bottom the overall score is actually quite positive. So I don't expect another tragedy of the sort, but more of a scandal related to the leaking of information about the recent past. Especially because if we see the speeds of the planets, the personal planets are moving fast, benefiting us on an individual level, but the outer planets are retrograde, which is going to feel like going backwards on the world stage. Now, if we go to the Saros cycle, this eclipse belongs to the cycle 128, which started in 984. And it was a south node in Virgo also, and a finger of God to the north node too, and Mercury also by the south node, and also a Saturn-Neptune conjunction, but in Scorpio, and Mars in fall as well. So we have some commonalities, and some of the events that happened that year, it was the death of a pope and the rise of another, like we had early on this year after the previous eclipse season, an emperor abdicating the throne in favor of his son, for what I expect King Charles to slowly transition the throne to Prince William. And on the technical front, we had an engineer innovating the Grand Canal in China to adjust water levels per segment. And as I mentioned in previous videos, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries felt a lot like weather warfare. And we recently had the CEO of Make It Rain disclosing on cloud seeding technology, which is nothing new, but it feels like a soft disclosure where the military-industrial complex point fingers to a little player to deflect and blame weather manipulation on him. So we see how some things repeat in accordance to the cycles, and with Neptune representing water and the eclipse being in Pisces, I expect a lot more water events happening, both natural and man-made. Now, let's see how it's going to impact the US. The eclipse falls in the third house of information and communication, and for the US, with Saturn at 29 critical degrees in Pisces, representing governments and boundaries, but also deception, and with Neptune representing both media, weather, and viruses in Aries, the sign of warfare, I expect a combination of the above themes. So either information about the virus or information about weather warfare, or the media being the typical weapons of mass distraction, as I like to call them. But information is coming out into light, and there's already a lot being coming out from the discoveries that Tulsi Gabbard made regarding previous administrations and behind the scenes deals, to what Kennedy is bringing into light regarding healthcare. But the television is not going to tell you much. And with Uranus in Gemini, this feels very fourth turning. And if you're not familiar with the fourth turning revolutions, it's best described by the phrase that said, bad time created good men created good times created weak men, and weak men created bad times. And that's where we are. And the cycle starts all over again, where bad times are about to create strong men. And the disruptions are coming in the job industry with AI, in the healthcare system with Bobby Kennedy, and there are disruptions affecting all sectors, including the financial system with the recent restructuring favoring crypto and the Genius Act. But in California, they want to confiscate crypto that has been untouched for 3 years. And this is very dangerous, even if you are not in California, because you have to understand that these are testing grounds. So whatever they can get away with in one area, they might try to push on to the next. So we don't have to allow it. We have to nip this on the bud. And with Jupiter magnifying everything, conjunct the USA Mercury of information in the 7th house of others, from enemies to allies, and even legal matters, I expect big news coming to light. And for finances, eclipses are very volatile. Otherwise, remember March. There's going to be a lot of speculation and pump and dump schemes, so be careful. And finally, with Mars in Libra, representing legal issues in the 10th house of government, this is about tactical diplomatic warfare and legal battles within government, where they might not tell you the truth because you might not be able to handle the truth, as there's a lot of dirty business underground which involves very powerful people and messing with kids. And finally, the big news is that they found some vestiges of life in Mars. And this might be part of an alien disclosure. Okay, so let's see where in the world is the eclipse going to impact the most. And interestingly enough, it's going through Minneapolis, where we had the recent shooting incident. is also going near Omaha. There is some information resurfacing regarding the Franklin cover-up. This was prior to the Epstein files and is in relation to people questioning the deployment of the police to the sea. And apparently they are cleaning out some underground networks. You can go down that rabbit hole on your own. And it's going through Texas, where there is an ongoing crisis, and with that, a lot of smuggling, especially of minors, that there's over 250,000 missing since 2020. And even some of the flooding of the Guadalupe reveals some strange activity in tunnels. But there's so much I can say here. And in the rest of the world is going through Russia and China. Now, recently Putin met with Trump, and this is almost like a NATO/BRICS hidden war. But the truth is that NATO wants to spend more in military defense, and the question is with what money? The debt to GDP ratio of the US is 120% versus the one of Russia that is 20%. So we're broke. And they tell you that Russia is looking bad, but Russia doesn't look so bad in numbers. And Putin and Xi recently invoked wartime unity as a challenge to the West in the Beijing military parade. And the eclipse is also going through China, and some of the recent news in China had to do with a mosquito virus outbreak. And then 2 Chinese scientists have been charged with smuggling a toxic fungus into the US, which can cause havoc in agricultural and health issues. And this was apparently intended for research at the University of Michigan. So the eclipse is not that far from there either. And there are a lot more news, but it's out of the scope of this video. This is just a touch-up. We don't know what the eclipse is going to bring, but that can give us some hints. And for the eclipse degrees and Sabian symbol, the eclipse is on 15 degrees, 22 minutes of Pisces. 15 degrees is in the middle decan, so this is fixed within mutable. So there's a moment of pause and rest before the change, like the calm before the storm. And the net number is 6, which is Venus number, representing harmony, beauty, ease, and flow. So this mitigates all the volatile energy of the eclipse, and this helps us with surrendering. And 22 minutes, the net number is 4, that is Uranus, representing challenges to stability, probably through innovation or disruption, the need for freedom or any unexpected change, which is naturally the characteristic of an eclipse anyway. And for the Sabian symbol, we round up to 16 degrees Pisces. And the symbol here is, in a quiet moment, a creative individual in his status experiences the flow of inspiration, or simply the flow of inspiration. So the symbolic meaning is to be a vessel for inspiration and intuition, receiving rather than forcing ideas, which is also a signature for eclipses. You don't want to push manifestation rituals here. You want to be more of an antenna and a vessel. And also connection with the divine or universal creativity. If you ask most artists where their art came from, they often cannot pinpoint. They just feel like they receive it somehow. And this favors especially dreamers, artists, writers, spiritual seekers, or channelers, and so on. And for the eclipse correspondences, we have the 9 of Cups. And this is the Suit of Cups is all about emotions, intuition, and relationships, because it's a water suit. And the 9, it has to do with completions, endings, and terminations, which are typical from lunar eclipses. And also 2025 is net number 9, so this is the year of endings. And this card is called the Lord of Happiness and is a positive omen. It represents fulfillment, contentment, gratitude, desires being realized, satisfaction. The caution with this card is basically complacency or overindulgence, so we have to watch for that. Now, we can have some Neptunian herbs. This is not medical advice. And something that helps is clary sage essential oils. And this helps you to connect to the dream real, intuition, and vision. So if you rub it on your temples, you're more likely to connect to your dreams, which usually carry messages from the unconscious and beyond. Valerian root induces sleep and deep relaxation, as it has the highest content of bioavailable calcium. So it acts as a muscle relaxant. And then blue lotus tea is connected to mysticism and altered state of consciousness. So here there's a caution with herbs that can have some psychoactive or toxic effect in large doses or interact with any medications that you might be taking. Always consult with your physician first. But the tea is very mild in general, and it just favors the proper state of mind. If you want to work with crystals, gravitate more towards what's blue or purple. Fluorite supports clarity in the midst of chaos, and it helps you navigate through the Neptune's fog. Aquamarine helps with clarity, soothing the emotions, and releasing fear, which is part of this eclipse. And Moonstone heightens your intuition and your psychic perception and supports your emotional flow and the recalling of dreams as well. So Moonstone works with the moon. And back to the Three-Eye Atlas, the third interstellar object, which has metaphysical implications as it comes from the galactic center, which is like the heart of our galaxy, and is supposed to trigger the collective awakening for a quantum leap in evolution, as is supposed to be an activation key for the 12-strand DNA and karmic timelines. And this was a prediction by Barbara Marciniak in her book Bringers of the Dawn, which she channels Pleiadian messages, and they state that interdimensional beings are here to assist humanity for awakening through a rare celestial event. But I also learned through a rabbi who's also a scientist, and his name is Ephraim Palvanov. You can follow him in YouTube, where he stated that also the Zohar has predicted an interstellar object which would usher the coming of the Messiah. And the question is that if this is an artificial or a natural event, and apparently scientists have confirmed that it's an artificial event as it's course correcting, and the chances of its pathway is 1 in 20,000, and also the tail is not backwards but towards the sun. So the question was, if it is artificial, then is it friendly or hostile? And when they posed this question, this reminds me of Project Bluebeam, which is supposed to be a man-made alien event to control the narrative. But if there is an actual alien event, it might escape their control anyway. And something that I predicted a couple of videos ago is that with the state of the world and the advancement of technologies where nukes are almost obsolete, we are dangerous and we're probably being monitored. And recently I found this quote from David Gross, which is a physicist who won the Nobel Prize in Physics, and he says that this is a blind date of interstellar proportions, and his best advice is in a blind date to observe the other side. Now, we had revealed our presence by broadcasting radio signals for over a century, and if this object comes from the Oort cloud at the speed that is coming, it would have taken 80 years to be here. And what happened 80 years ago was Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I'm happy to learn that my prediction seems to be on target. And that being said, what is that we are awakening to? Well, I would say that something that humanity needs to awaken to is the Hegelian dialectic and the illusion of choosing, where both wings belong to the same birth. And I love this meme on the left where people with pitches and forks are protesting against the king, and the advisor says you don't need to fight them. You just need to convince the pitchfork people that the torch people want to take away the pitchfork. So this is basically how the world is managed, and this is since Napoleon times. And there's a documentary that I highly recommend that is called Thrive, and you can get it at thrivemovement.org. It's free. It was deemed the best documentary in 2012, where a member of the elite rebelled against them and disclosed how the world works, and also what's the role of aliens in the world and why this has been hidden. But I think that Trump is the disclosure president. The president that apparently wanted to be the disclosure president was Kennedy, and we know what happened to him. So we'll see. Now, the other meme that explains a lot what I consider to be an awakened individual is the meme on the right. Someone who knows that basically things are by design. And this is a man poking the symbol of the elites, saying, come on, do an alien invasion. Coronavirus is boring. So we're over that. And I think the alien invasions is next. So anyway, people at this point don't know what to believe, and that's actually a good place to be. So if they throw something of the sort and they claim that this is hostile, let's not fall for yet another narrative. So now for the signs, this eclipse is going to be more relevant to people in mutable sign, especially Pisces, because this is on your sign, and Virgo, because this is opposed your sign, and also Sagittarius and Gemini, because this is squaring your sign. And it's going to be easier for the other water signs like Cancer and Scorpio, because this is going to trine you. And this will affect mostly for the people on the second decan of their sign, so in the middle of their signs, around 15 degrees. And it's good to check your sun, moon, and rising. The sun represents your soul, the moon your emotional life, and the rising more your identity and your ego. So for Aries, this falls in your 12th house of health and spirituality. This is mental health, and it's also the house of rest and the unconscious, but also the house of institutions like places of worship, like churches, hospitals, and even jails. It's also called the house of self-undoing because it's the house of addictions as well. So there's something that you're terminating here that has been affecting your daily routine, your health, and your work. Now, with Jupiter exalted in the home sector, you have the support of your loved ones. So this could be starting therapy or a 12-step program or going on a spiritual retreat. Alternatively, you might have had a checkup that revealed an important diagnosis or some information about your health that you might want to take care of. For Taurus, this eclipse falls in your 11th house of groups and associations, friends, and networking, and is opposed to your 5th house of fun, creativity, recreation, and procreation. So you're releasing something or someone that is related to your tribe in order to pursue that which you love and that you want to take care of, which is either a child or a creative project, or maybe just go on dating. Or alternatively, there's a termination in the creative sector with a kid leaving for college or the completion of a creative project that allows you time for new social activities, like joining a club or some kind of higher cause. And for Gemini, this eclipse falls in your 10th house of career and reputation and is opposed to your 4th house of home and family, where it brings issues around work-life balance. So you might be terminating with a career-related project that was taking time away from your family, or a very demanding schedule that didn't allow you time for bonding with your loved ones, or you might be looking to retiring, or alternatively to get a promotion or change your position at work, or just change work or even industry, so things don't go down at home. And you could even be looking into working from home. And for Cancer, this eclipse takes place in your 9th house of expansion and is opposed to your 3rd house of communication and peers. So there's a change in your mentality regarding what you're capable of doing. I see this as a matter of choosing between being a big fish in a small pond versus daring to be a small fish in a big pond. The belief system is changing, a belief system about yourself, and you can be redefining what your purpose is and pursue higher education upon termination of an educational program, or you might be tired of playing small and you want to travel abroad, or you might go from learning to teaching or from writing to publishing and so on. And for Leo, this eclipse falls in your financial axis. There's a termination in your trust and intimate sector and shared resources, which is the sector of money that comes from your spouse or a business partner. Is also the house of inheritance, loans, taxes, insurances, and other people's money in general. And is opposed the 2nd house of values, self-worth, and all money matters related to income and possessions. So there's a release associated with possible investments like paying off a loan or dividing an account with an ex-spouse, or some kind of termination or separation from a business partnership or wrap up in this area that frees you up to invest your money in a different way. For Virgo, this eclipse falls in your 7th house of significant others, from spouses to business partners and other peoples in general, even including enemies like in legal battles, and is opposed to your 1st house of self. So there's a release associated with someone, a significant other, that could be a divorce or redefining the rules of engagement with your partner, or a business separation, or some kind of restructuring a business with someone else, or a legal resolution. And this probably triggers you to let go of some patterns and some aspects of yourself that no longer serve you, and those could be related to perfectionism or even criticism that might not be taken well by others. For Libra, this eclipse falls in your 6th house of routine, work, and health, and is opposed to your 12th house of spirituality, mental health, addictions, institutions like churches, hospitals, and even jails, and is the house of rest, but overall is considered the house of self-undoing. So there is some daily habit that you're releasing for your own well-being, that it could be a sedentary life or a bad diet or just running on adrenals, in favor of your mental and physical health, and also to leave you some room for spirituality. This is a good time to start with a meditation program or some kind of spiritual practice. For Scorpio, this eclipse falls in your 5th house of creativity, recreation, and procreation, and is opposed to your 11th house of groups and associations. So there is some termination or release associated with either the way you have fun or a completion of a creative project, or a kid going off to college, that allows you more time to bond with your tribe or connect with your community or join a club or start with a charitable cause. For Sagittarius, this eclipse falls in your 4th house of home and is opposed to your 10th house of career and reputation. So there's some demands at home that have been taking a toll on you and might have taken time away from you being able to focus on your career, or you might be terminating something with your family or in your house, or even real estate like a renovation, for example, to free you some time up for career pursuits which will favor your reputation. Alternatively, it could be the other way around. For Capricorn, this falls in your 3rd house of communication, peers, and the way you think, and is opposed to your 9th house of expansion, higher education, and long-distance travel, and also belief system. So you're releasing an old way of thinking about yourself that allows you to expand and pursue higher goals and aspirations. Maybe join a new educational program, or travel abroad, or going from learning to teaching, or from writing to publishing, or just changing your belief systems about yourself and your limitations in order to be able to expand. And for Aquarius, this eclipse falls in your 2nd house of values, your possessions, and self-worth, and also the way you make money. And is opposed your 8th house of shared resources, trust, and intimacy. You're either letting go of an income stream, or maybe there's a new income stream, or you're organizing your priorities regarding values, or there's a new sense of self-worth that allows for new ways of investments or share resources with significant others or a business partner or someone that you trust. And for Pisces, this eclipse falls in your 1st house of self, so this is all about you and how it might affect your psyche and your physical appearance. And you're letting go of an old self to usher a new improved version of you that can also help you relate better with people that are aligned with you, which might imply that you have to let go of someone who's not aligned with you. Alternatively, you might want to redefine the rules of engagement with your primary relationships. And this is not just for personal, but also for professional. And with that, I will leave you today. It takes me more than a minute to make this and just a sec to like. And I believe I've been shadow banned for some of the things I said, or competing with AI, which is a losing battle. So please, please, please like, share, subscribe. I hope this was helpful, but where I can help you the most is with a private consultation or with my book. And this is the unboxing of my new book. And this is a book about you. Here will go your name, your natal chart. So we have the table of contents, an introduction, my bio, your natal chart, 10 pages with all information about you that is worth it for a lifetime, your numerology, with your personality number, your soul number, your destiny number, your career number, your missing number, your initials, your vowels. Then your lunar progressions, that is like a chapter in your life with your natal moon and your progress moon. And then we have horoscope for a whole year. 1 month per page and 1 week per paragraph. And this is worth it for a long year. And then you have other offers of my readings, my contact information, website, and social media. And that's it, folks. Contact me for your copy. Bye now.